welcome to this PureTech webinar. We're delighted that you're here, and my name is Rita Cronice. I am a co-director for PureTech, and just a little bit about me. I'm a person with lived experience myself. I've been managing a major mental health condition for well over 60 years. Well, maybe not well over, but over 60 years. And we're just really delighted that you're here. This particular session is primarily geared for HR and hiring managers to understand a little bit more about what you need to know when you're hiring peer specialists who are receiving social supplemental security income or social security disability insurance benefits, so social security benefits for short. Our presenters for today are very, very knowledgeable on this topic and very good friends. Gina Schoen with the Office of Mental Health. She is the director of the Upstate Bureau of Regional Advocacy and Peer Support Services, or OEPS. And Christopher Coyle, who is with the Office of Mental Health as well. He's the Regional Employment Liaison for the New York Employment Services System. So we'd like to really learn a little bit more about each of you that are attending this session. So we're going to launch a poll where you can tell us whether you're an HR representative or a hiring manager or a supervisor, peer support specialist, or somebody in the C-suite of the chief executive officer, chief financial officer, chief operating officer, et cetera, or whatever another role that you might be playing. And as you're answering that poll, I'm going to continue to move forward just a little bit to tell you a little bit about us here at PureTech. So this is just a quick overview of who we are. We're the Peer Support Services Technical Assistance Center, and our mission is to improve access to peer support across the lifespan. So we were established to deliver training, technical assistance, and consultation to mental health organizations that are serving people across the lifespan, including children, youth, family, adults and older adults, and anyone within that span living with mental health conditions. And our focus is on the expansion of peer support services within mental health organizations. Our real focus is on working with the organizations. There's a companion project called the Peer Advancement Network that is working specifically with individual peers. We can tell you a little bit more about that at some point if you're interested. A little bit more about us. We seek to ensure that all people, regardless of age, race, socioeconomic status, stigma, or other factors that can limit somebody's ability to recover, have the ability to receive peer support services as probably one of the most beneficial opportunities for working towards recovery that there is. Our leadership within PureTech comes from Rutgers School of Health Professions Academy of Peer Services, where I've worked for a very long time. The Academy of Peer Services does the training for the credential for adult peer specialists. And we also partner with New York University, McSilver Institute, and Families Together for the family and youth credentials for that particular side of the profession. We have organizational partners from the Alliance for Rights and Recovery and from the New York City, or from the Wellness Collaborative New York Independent Practice Association, and all of the other, as well as many more that are shown on this particular slide. There's many, many, many groups that are helping us with this Technical Assistance Center that are very knowledgeable about peer support services, either because they're leading peer-run organizations or otherwise providing peer support services. So our objectives for today are to learn to describe the basics about Social Security benefits, to recognize situations where peer specialists may need some information about receiving benefits while working. Some people may be going back to work for the first time, or maybe moving from part-time to full-time. So this is an opportunity for you to know a little bit more about that and where they can go for more information. To be able to locate a benefits advisor in your local region, and to dispel some of the myths about receiving Social Security benefits while working. So I want to pause for a moment here and just see who's in the room. Can we have the results of the poll? Oh, great. We have representatives from HR and from hiring managers. about 31% HR representatives, 17% hiring managers, about 22% supervisors, 11% are peer specialists and advocates. We've got a few from the C-suite, and then we've got another 17% from another role. Well, we're glad to have all of you here, and I'm just delighted that we actually did reach out to our target audience of HR representatives and hiring managers. So welcome to you all. I just wanted to give a little bit of a setting of the stage of where we're going from here. So as an HR representative or hiring manager, why should you know about Social Security benefits? So many people receiving disability benefits really want to work, but fear there may be negative consequences like losing their cash benefits, their housing, their health insurance, or other entitlements, not just for themselves, but often their families are also involved in receiving those benefits. So when a peer specialist is making a decision about whether working is right for them, these candidates may not always be aware of the options that are available or how to make the best decision for their situation. So federal work incentive programs and Social Security benefits advisors can help these candidates who are currently receiving disability benefits to determine whether it's better to work full-time, part-time, or to work at all. And as an HR representative or hiring manager, this webinar can help you to identify resources that you can provide to candidates to learn more about how to make the best choice for their situation. And why does it matter? Well, in many respects, job satisfaction and employee retention really ride on these important decisions that people are making when they're first taking a job. So with that, I'd like to turn this webinar over to my colleague, Regina Schoen.
Hi, everyone. I just want to share with you, and right from the get-go, that all of these slides that we're going to share today pertain solely to peer specialists who are receiving Social Security and SSDI benefits. And we really need to mention that because not everyone who's going to be applying for employment as a peer specialist will be receiving Social Security or SSI benefits. I just think that needs to bear mentioning.
And Gina, could I just mention something really quickly that I missed? That is that if you have questions along the way, please go ahead and add them to the chat. We absolutely want to get your questions. We will reserve them till the end to answer. And if we happen to not be able to get to them at the very end, we will have Chris and Gina answer those questions after the fact and send them back out to the whole group. So please do ask questions, but please know that we're going to be going through a lot of slides. So, all right, go ahead, Gina.
So our first bit of scenarios and information are going to apply to folks who do receive SSDI or Social Security disability insurance. And we have a scenario with Suzanne. She's a single mother of two. She has 3-year-old twins, and she is receiving cash benefits from Social Security disability insurance. So it's important to note that SSDI is an insurance. That means that Suzanne has worked, she has paid into the system, and so she now lives in low-income housing. She receives food stamps. She uses a free MTA card for transportation, and she herself is covered under Medicare health insurance. Although she's not currently working, she would qualify for free daycare if she does return to work. Suzanne does know that work is allowable while she still receives SSDI benefits, but she doesn't really know her options, and she doesn't think the people in the Social Security office are particularly helpful. So she recently completed courses and received a provisional certified peer specialist certification, which allows her to work in the mental health system, providing support to people who are currently receiving mental health services. Suzanne interviewed at CNCA, Care and Compassionate Agency, where they have 2 openings. One is part-time and the other is full-time, and they have offered her the choice of which one to take, and she is not sure. So how can you as the employer help? So, you know, if anyone wants to put into the chat how you think you might be able to help, that'd be great. In my opinion, I think that the best way that anyone could help Suzanne right now if she's applying for your job, is to educate her, first and foremost. What we can't do is we can't, after we've offered someone a job and they've accepted it, is, we can't say, do you receive, are you disabled? Do you receive Social Security? But what we can do as employers and say, I can offer you this information. I can say, in the past, we have hired folks with disabilities or people who receive Social Security benefits, and we found these resources to be helpful for individuals. And I want to offer you this information. It's important to know that people who are on Social Security disability benefits often may apply for jobs and aren't aware of the Ticket to Work program. And so we want to ensure that they are reporting their wages within the month that they have earned those wages, so that they don't end up with an overpayment. So we want to connect them with perhaps a disability resource coordinator or a benefits specialist within their region or the city that they live in, so that they can learn about these resources and make an educated choice about working part or full-time. Because it doesn't just affect their Social Security income, it's going to affect the low-income housing that they live in. It's going to affect their Medicaid that their children might be receiving, and any SNAP benefits that they receive, and any other social benefit programs that they receive that are income reliant. So while we may not be able to ask certain questions, we can still offer resources and help people obtain those resources and be attentive to that when they're making those decisions. So again, SSDI also pays benefits to an individual and certain family members. So her children probably receive a small SSDI check as well as her dependents. And again, her SSDI she gets because she worked long enough and paid into the system through tax credits. So what are the incentives and rules for hiring people with disabilities? There are actually a host of federal and state tax credits that you can receive. There's several through New York State, and at least a minimum of one through the federal government. They can be stacked together. So you could receive a minimum of $5,000 per person with a disability and tax credits. And then there are also other programs through Access VR. There is the on-the-job training, and I wrote down another one, a work tryout program that will reimburse 100% of their wages actually through the Access VR program. So there are a lot of different programs for hiring people with disabilities. How can you best support employees or prospective employees who are receiving SSDI benefits while working? Exactly how we just talked. You can provide them resources. You can be very attentive to whether it's best for them to work part-time or full-time, and perhaps educating yourself about basic work incentives. I know a lot of agencies don't give out paper pay stubs anymore. It's very important for an individual to turn in their wages in the same month that they've earned their wages. And a lot of individuals have found that they still end up with an overpayment. So it's important for a lot of people to mail their wages in, or to hand deliver their wages to their local Social Security office. So that's a really great way to support the people that you employ, is to still provide a paper pay stub. So that's something very simple. Yeah, it makes a huge difference to someone, so they don't end up with a $20,000 or a $30,000 overpayment. It can make a world of difference to them. Next slide. And just so you know, we are going to cover more work incentives. Again, you don't need to be an expert in what work incentives are. Just something as small as knowing just that one basic thing, being able to help somebody to turn in their wages, that's the most basic thing that you could be aware of, instead of telling somebody, well, no, we don't provide paper pay stubs, you could make a huge difference for them. So, the hiring incentives, there are Department of Labor programs and funding opportunities that provide incentives for hiring people with disabilities. In New York State, there's the Workers with Disabilities tax credits that encourage employers to hire people with disabilities. That credit is up to $2,100 per person hired per year. It can be used with the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, but only claimed in the second year of employment. The tax credit may be used to offset New York State tax liabilities. Peer support specialists, by definition, do disclose their mental health disabilities, and there are special rules for hiring people with disabilities. So obviously, if you're hiring someone who's going to disclose that they have a mental health diagnosis, that one would apply. Under the American with Disabilities Act, employers are prohibited from asking candidates their disability status. However, the interviewer can ask about the person's history when there's a bona fide occupational qualification. So you can use these guidelines that are highlighted here, and you will receive a copy of this PowerPoint, so you'll be able to click that link. So you can use those guidelines in order to better understand the questions that you can ask during an interview, such as, can you tell me some ways that you might use your lived experience to support the people you'll be working with?
So they're going to have these. So I'm going to skip ahead because I can
Okay.
ask these, and then we can jump to how to make people aware.
So you can have brochures available in your waiting room or office of local resources for anyone with a disability to seek help with Social Security benefits while working. And that's a great way to support the people that you're providing services to as well. And you can include resources about receiving Social Security benefits during onboarding for anyone with a disability who might benefit from the information. And, let's just be honest, it can really pay to hire people with disabilities for any position that you have, not just peer specialists. So, it's a really great way to just offer that opportunity to anyone that you're hiring. You can assume that at least some of the candidates for peer specialist position receive Social Security benefits, and you can share different types of assistance that are available for people with disabilities who receive Social Security benefits while working. And then you can, instead of just not asking the question, do you receive Social Security benefits, just say, do you know how to access this assistance in your region? But, a really good rule of thumb as well is to let them know that they're going to be providing these resources to the people they serve as well. Next slide. What work incentives and resources are available for working while receiving SSDI? A quick reference, trial work period. So, a really great rule of thumb to know is that if I'm receiving SSDI and I'm working during my trial work period, I want to make as much money as I possibly can. So, if I can choose to work part-time, I'm probably should really be working full-time, because I can make as much money as I want during a specific period of time, and it's not going to matter, because if I'm making, $6 an hour or $60 an hour, it's going to affect me the same exact way. The extended period of eligibility. So that means that I'm going to be eligible for my health insurance longer. So just know that you're not going to have to pay for my health insurance, my Medicaid or Medicare, depending on which one I qualify for, is going to still cover me. So that's really important to know. There's Medicare for people with disabilities, and that's much like Medicaid buy-in for people with disabilities. That's going to cover me for, 7 or 8 years. And I'm protected from medical continuing disability reviews. So that means that during my trial work period, and while I'm exploring returning to work, I'm not going to get dinged, and they're not going to come and say, do a review on me and say, well, since you're working, you must be no longer disabled. So I'm protected from these things while I'm in my trial work period. A benefits advisor, if I'm connected with one of them, is going to explain all of these things to me. So a certified work incentive practitioner or a benefits advisor, it's really important to know where to find one of these folks, And the New York State Employment Services System, or NICE, as we call it, has created a statewide network of how long is the trial work period? It's a 9-month period within a floating 60-month period. So, it's not a fixed 9-month period. It is a fixed 9-month period, but it can be floating within a 60-month period. So I might work a month, but then I might not work for 2 months, and then it'll start again. So I get 9 months of a trial work period, but it doesn't have to be 9 straight months. But again, you don't have to be an expert in when my trial work period starts or ends. What you have to be an expert in is just getting me to the experts who are able to help me understand these. So the New York Employment Services System, they're the experts, and they can connect me to the benefits advisors. And I'm going to hand you over to Chris Coyle, who can explain more because he actually works for the NICE system.
Thanks, Gina. I am a nice guy, you could say, NYESS. So thanks, Gina and Rita and everybody for joining us. I'm going to talk a little bit more about NICE in a minute, but I want to kind of dive into the world of SSI. But if you have questions about anything that Gina talked about with SSDI, just throw them in chat and we'll entertain them as we can. So we can go to the next slide. And I want to start off by talking about Jonah, who is a peer specialist intern candidate. And this is his scenario right here. Jonah is a 19-year-old high school grad with a provisional peer specialist certification who has applied for an internship at your organization. The internship offers a stipend. However, he's already receiving cash benefits from SSI, from Supplemental Security Income. He lives with his grandmother, receives food stamps, and uses free public transportation. He knows that some income is allowable while receiving SSI benefits, but he doesn't understand the income limits, doesn't know where he can go. Social Security office is not always the friendliest place, not an indictment. It's just a bit of a fact there. But in this situation, his grandmother took care of all that. So I'm going to walk you through to help answer Jonah's concerns, which are also many other people's concerns. I'm going to walk you through here what SSI is and then talk a little bit more about some of the work incentives. So SSI, again, is Supplemental Security Income. This is a needs-based program. So it provides minimum basic financial assistance to older adults or people with disabilities, regardless of age, with very limited income and resources. Okay. Federal SSI benefits from SSA are often supplemented by state programs, which is the case here in New York. The 2024 numbers just came out, and it's $943 for federal SSI. Added on to that is the $87 of the New York State supplement. So anyone in New York State starting next year will be receiving $1,030 a month in SSI. Yep, go to the next slide. So you talk about $1,000 and change. That's surviving, right? It's not thriving, especially given the inflation that we're in, right? So how can you build a sustainable workforce for Jonah, for others like Jonah? How can you best support employees or prospective employees who are receiving SSI benefits while working? And that's why we're here. We want you to know where the resources are. I know Gina said it a couple times, and I'll say it a couple times. We don't expect you all to be experts in knowing every work incentive that's out there, but just know that there are work incentives out there and where folks can go to get information. Okay. Sorry, Rita, let me just go back one. I think I just answered that. Yeah, what are the basic work incentives and programs that are available? So I'm going to talk about that now. Thanks, Rita. So what resources are available for folks on SSI? I'm not going to go through every one of these in the interest of time, but this is a quick reference list of some of the SSI work incentives that are available for folks. 1619B, I am going to spend about 30 seconds on because that's a huge one, and it's a grossly underutilized work incentive. So 1619B answers the concern that many folks have who are on SSI about what's going to happen to my, not only my SSI, but what's going to happen to my Medicaid when I go back to work. You know, Medicaid is my health insurance, it's my housing, it's my specialized transportation, it's any VR vocational rehab support. That's all done through my Medicaid eligibility. What's going to happen? So the answer really is 1619B, and what that is that if SSI beneficiaries who are working have earnings that are too high for an SSI check, so they might have lost their SSI check, they can continue to work and receive their Medicaid based on a couple eligibility factors. Okay. Again, I'm not going to dive too deep into what those are. I do want to share what the threshold is, though. In New York State right now, an individual on SSI who loses their SSI because of earnings from work can continue to keep their Medicaid and make up to $52,286 a year. So that's a pretty good chunk of change. And then from there, they could graduate, if you will, to the Medicaid buy-in program, which I'll talk about in a minute. But these others here, blind work expenses, that's for folks who are blind, who can utilize some of their income, or I should say to utilize some of the expenses they have on a daily basis at work to lower their accountable income. Okay. Earned income exclusion is another, exactly that, an exclusion where they don't count all of the income that someone is earning on SSI. Student earned income exclusion is another one for younger adults, folks around, late teens, 2021. Past plans, great way for folks to save money, save it for a work goal without being penalized, because with SSI, you can't have more than $2,000 in resources. Past plan and another account that I'll talk about, ABLE accounts, answer that concern as well. Property essential to self-support, another very good work incentive. Special SSI payments for people who work, 1619A, rapid reinstatement. Again, I'm not going to go into all these, but just know that they are out there, and where you want to go is our site. The NICE site has a link there to click on to find local benefits advisors. You can also go to that site on the bottom of this page. That's the ytionline.org SSI calculator. That's right through Cornell, and that is a phenomenal tool for folks who are concerned about what's going to happen to their SSI or their Medicaid when they go back to work. It really does the calculations for you. So I highly recommend you take a look at that. Next slide. Okay, so yes, I work for NICE, New York Employment Service System. That is our site right there, nyess.ny.gov. There are a bunch of different links and resources here. I did want to highlight the customer resources. This is on our page right now. You can go check it out. And it's just a T-chart, as you can see, distinguishes between 1619B eligibility and what I mentioned a minute ago, the Medicaid buy-in program for working people with disabilities. Medicaid buy-in is a federal title in New York State. They're not charging premiums at this time, so it does result in free Medicaid coverage. But you can see real quick, the 1619B wage threshold, as I mentioned, is $52,286. The resource limit, though, is still at $2,000 for MBI, Medicaid buy-in. The threshold goes up considerably to where folks can make up to $73,932 and still keep their Medicaid and have resources up to $30,182. So a great jump there. By the way, these numbers will be going up much higher, the Medicaid buy-in numbers. I don't have those numbers in front of me right now, but stay tuned for an announcement probably in the next quarter, to where it will be substantially higher, which obviously allows for further growth for folks to work and essentially increase their quality of life. So next slide. Thank you. Okay, so again, folks on SSI have that $2,000 resource limit. They can't have more than $2,000. That really limits their ability to enjoy life, right? It keeps them essentially in a state of poverty. So the New York ABLE account was created a few years ago. It's relatively new. And it's a program designed specifically for disabled New York residents to protect their eligibility for benefits such as Medicaid and SSI. This is an account where you can, anyone can donate money, you can donate money, family and friends can donate money. But the owner is you, the individual, the qualifying individual for the ABLE account owns the account. But New York ABLE accounts give earnings the ability to grow tax deferred and allow savings to be withdrawn tax-free for certain qualified expenses. I do want to give you, again, I'm not doing a deep dive here, but I do want to give you the number that folks can have in their ABLE account, which is $100,000 they can have in an ABLE account before they lose their SSI eligibility. So that's huge, right? We just said that $2,000 was the cap for resources. With an ABLE account, it's $100,000 before you lose your SSI. And for the life of the ABLE account, Gina, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 520. It's in the neighborhood of $530,000 that people can have in their account over their lifetime. Okay. One more quick note. If someone has more than, let's say they have $105,000, yes, they're going to lose their SSI, but they're not going to be faced with an overpayment. Okay. They're just not going to receive the SSI. Once they get it down below 100 grand, they'll get an SSI check again. You're probably wondering how the heck did they get such a high amount? They did it through lobbying, through very strong advocacy. So my little plug here, always for advocacy, it does work. This is proof right here. So next slide. So again, the theme is, that's right, Gina, they lose the check, but not their eligibility for SSI. Thank you. And again, the theme here is that we don't expect you all to walk away knowing every single piece of information about work and incentives that we're talking about. We want you to know, yes, that they're out there, but we want you to know where you can send people for more information. And those people are certified work incentives planners or benefits advisors. Here's our site again, nyess.ny.gov. That's right on the homepage. Click on benefits advisors, type in your zip code. You'll get connected to folks in your local area. So, thank you. I think I'm passing the mic back to Gina.
Yes.
Thank you.
So it's important to know that a lot of individuals receive combined SSDI and SSI, and we want to give you the basics for these individuals as well. So Mark is an older adult certified peer specialist. He has just received his peer specialist certification. He has a lot of life experience in addition to lived experience, and he's mainly interested in working with other experienced or older adults like himself. His income is limited, so he's receiving both supplemental security income and Social Security disability insurance. He wants to work full-time, but he's afraid he'll go over the income limits and lose some of his benefits like his Medicaid health insurance. Next slide. What's the difference between SSDI and SSI? The major difference is that the SSDI determination is based on disability and work credits, and the SSI determination is based on age, disability, and limited income and resources. So what resources are available for working while receiving both SSDI and SSI? He can use impairment-related work expenses, subsidies and special conditions, unincurred business expenses, unsuccessful work attempts, continued payments under a vocational rehab program, and expedited reinstatement. So he can use a little bit of both, or actually he could use all of both. And that's important to know. And again, his best resource is going to be utilizing a benefits practitioner or, a benefits advisor. And again, you can find those right at the NICE website. And other considerations, I think this goes right back to Rita. Rita, were you going to speak to this one?
Yep, it comes to me. So Some other considerations for hiring peer specialists, and this is, I think, an enormously important consideration for hiring managers and HR, is that sometimes people have a criminal history after they've had some kind of an encounter while they're having some kind of a mental health crisis. And because this can be a real barrier, the New York State Justice Center has information on the rights of people seeking employment when they're navigating this situation. So the Justice Center has information. There's a search that they can conduct on personal criminal history information review. That has details on how they can obtain a copy of their criminal history, and also details on how to challenge the information if it's inaccurate. In particular, there's information on background checks. And if we go back to that bona fide occupational requirement, if you are serving people that, within your population of people receiving services that have criminal histories, it can be extremely beneficial to have them working with a peer specialist who understands that system, has been through that system, has been able to navigate what's happened through that system so that they can help somebody else. So I just wanted to mention that there is information through the Department of Labor, and there's also information through SMI Advisor, which is a offshoot of the National Association of Mental Health Program Directors, or NASHBIT. So there's information at both of those links that can be very helpful for you if you want to hire a peer specialist who has a criminal justice history, and what you may need to do as a hiring manager. So I will hand it back over to Chris and Gina.
So there are a lot of myths and facts about working or simply receiving SSI and SSDI. If people want to chime in via chat, we'll we can read your answers, or however you guys want to do it. But myth or fact, supplemental security income, or SSI, is the same as Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI. Great.
We're seeing that. You guys are good.
Yep, you guys are great. Yeah, so SSDI is an insurance plan you pay into. Wonderful. Yeah, so hopefully everyone already knew this, but you're right, it is a myth. So SSI is a needs-based program, and it's a social benefit that anyone can apply for, and SSDI is an insurance program that folks pay into. And we can go on to the next one. Chris, you could take that one.
Sure. Social Security benefits advisors work on commission and take a percentage of the benefits a person receives if they work while receiving benefits. What do we think? Myth or fact? Michelle says myth. Christopher says myth. Myth. You all are correct. You're all are correct. They do not charge. In fact, on our site, again, on the NICE site, you'll see a link to benefits advisors. Those folks work for free. In addition to that, there are disability resource coordinators, or DRCs, around the state who provide free benefits counseling. We want folks to know that, there are free support out there. We don't want them to have to pay for knowledge, so this is a myth for sure.
Myth or fact, if a job candidate signs up for Social Security Ticket to Work, they immediately have a continuing disability review, which usually means they lose their Social Security disability benefits. Right. Everyone's saying myth, false, myth. Yeah, correct. So if people sign up for Ticket to Work, the opposite happens. It protects people from continuing disability reviews. That's one of the perks that you get from a Ticket to Work and utilizing it, is that your continuing disability reviews are put on hold.
And one thing I would just add on to that is folks are protected from a CDR if they're making timely progress in ticket. Because that's the whole point, right? Ticket to Work, Self-Sufficiency Act. They want to see folks moving from interview to job to maybe 10 hours a week to 20 to 30. So that, yeah, they just want to see them progressing, but yep. Thanks, Gina. If a candidate who is receiving Social Security benefits chooses to work, they lose their Medicare or Medicaid health insurance because the employer is expected to pay for their health insurance. You guys are quick. False, myth, no. Correct. You are correct. You saw what we highlighted, right? 1619B, Medicaid buy-in. Those are two programs where people can continue to receive their Medicaid. In the SSDI world, there's continuing Medicare coverage for almost 8 years that folks can engage in. So yeah, this is certainly a myth.
When people start to work, their wages are automatically reported to Social Security by their employer.
This is a big one.
Oh, no, Beth. They are not. Oh, no. So, yes, I will. This one can be so confusing.
Yeah.
So employers do report wages to Social Security, but unfortunately not in the same way. So employers report wages quarterly and they report them for their own reasons, but they're not reported in the same way that an individual has to report their income. So an individual who receives Social Security disability benefits or Social Security or Supplemental Security Income has to report any income they receive in the month that they receive the income. So if you wait and you report it quarterly, that's how you end up with an overpayment. So this is why, as an employer, if someone comes to you and says, all of our pay stubs come electronically and I don't have a printer at home, and I'm unable to print my pay stubs. Is there any way I can get my pay stub printed for me? This is a huge support for people. It's a really big boon for them to be able to get them printed. I will share a quick scenario. I had an individual all throughout COVID who's they worked with a private agency that was supposed to be helping them do their reports, and they were helping them do the reports to the Social Security Administration. However, the Social Security Administration stopped taking electronic reports. They just ceased everything because none of the Social Security workers were in the office, and half of the Social Security workers weren't allowed to work remotely. So you were no longer allowed to report electronically wage reports. And one of the people that I worked with at the clinic that I was working out of ended up with a $40,000 overpayment, despite the fact that her worker was reporting and had email receipts showing that she had reported this lady's wages. So we decided to mail in all of the email receipts saying that the wages had been reported, and we started printing out her pay stubs via paper. And I started making an appointment every Monday morning and going over and turning in her pay stub for her because she had to be to work. And we filed, all the paperwork to appeal their decision. And thankfully, she did not have the $40,000 overpayment. They rescinded that decision because she had proof that all of her wages had been reported. It was because none of those workers were in, and none of them had received their own emails because they weren't allowed to work remotely. But you can see that a lot of it was all due to COVID. It was through no fault of their own. So a lot of people really prefer to report their wages through paper, so they have a paper trail of stamps, and they just it's much easier that way. And this could be a really big support for people. It eases their anxiety. And they may have been burned reporting them electronically. So what may seem like a really easy and simple plan to just send them electronically, a lot of people are not going to want to do it that way. So sorry that I took this extra time to make that explanation, but I think that it bears, it really needed to be explained.
No, you're good. You're good. What are any other myths or facts that you've heard about SSDI or SSI while working? Anything anyone wants to chime in to kind of ask the experts? And if there's nothing there, then we're going to move into the wrap up, but we have an interesting conversation that we want to probably, I'm realizing I'm not on camera, hello, to have about the idea of, should people be working full-time? Should people be working part-time? Or, how does that work? Because some people that are receiving benefits, sometimes organizations only offer part-time, and let's discuss it. What are the pros and what are the cons? I'm going to put Gina and Chris on the spot here and say, what are some of the pros and what are some of the cons to this?
Well, I'd just like to say again that not everyone who's applying for a peer specialist job is on benefits. We need to keep that in the forefront. And I heard that you could be charged with fraud if you receive SSDI and don't report wages. I've never heard of anybody being charged with fraud. I have heard of people who lose their SSDI until the overpayment is paid back, but I've never heard of anybody being charged with fraud. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I just haven't heard of it. But people can, depending on how large their overpayment is, you can elect to have a recoupment done at a certain amount, or you can elect to continue working and allow them to take your entire check as a repayment, depending on what your income is or what your ability to pay it back is and how big your overpayment was. Just back to the full or part-time, there could be a whole host of things that can contribute to why someone would feel the need to work part-time or full-time. I think these scenarios all play different parts. Suzanne, for instance, she had housing, free childcare, the free MTA card, all of those were income related, including her SNAP benefits. So if she made too much money, on one hand, she may have lost some of those. On the other hand, there were 3 people in her household. So she could potentially make more money than, say, the older gentleman. If he was in a single person household, and the fact that he's an older adult, he would have had to keep his income much lower than Suzanne would, simply because she had a minimum of 3 people in her household, and you can make more with younger children than you can as a single adult, and and still maintain those income related benefits. So again, as HR specialists, you're not going to have to know the ins and outs of social benefits. It's important for you to connect the people that you want to work with to the experts in the social benefits. Just knowing the treetop things as opposed to the weeds.
Yeah, and Gina, that's perfect. The only thing I'd add is kind of a general statement here, there's many things we learned from the last 3 years with COVID, but I think the biggest thing that I've learned in this field is that we know this, I know you all know this, but isolation is bad for our health, right? So the more people that are working, the bigger their social network is, the more money they have in their pocket, the higher their quality of life. And if they have that option, if you have the option to offer them full time, you now have tools that you can refer to, Medicaid buy-in program, 1619B, if folks are worried about making more than the allowable limit, They don't have to worry about that, with those two Medicaid programs, continuing Medicare programs, trial work period. So, yeah, I mean, it's individualized, but I think as a tool for recovery and as a tool to advance someone's quality of life, I always err on the side of how much can we possibly work? How much are you comfortable working? Let's talk about it. Let's not already limit ourselves to working because of fear of losing benefits or fear of losing, eligibility for housing or something like that. There are so many safety nets in place that can make that decision easier for individuals considering this. So,
yeah, and the reality is I've been doing these trainings for 8 years, and every potential scenario shows that work is less about money than it is about recovery. And there are multiple longitudinal studies that show that real recovery is directly impacted by work. Whether it is, substance use related or mental health related. People who work maintain recovery longer and more meaningfully when they're employed. And that includes, ties into the community and more self-reported feelings of purpose and just, overall recovery works better when people are employed, and it's less about money in their pocket and more about actually feeling recovery. And we've also shown repeatedly that outcomes are better with employment than they are with social benefit programs. So the more we work, the better the quality of our lives are, even without the social benefits that we receive. It's more a matter of showing people that you actually, working full time actually gives you that better quality of life.
Thanks so much, Gina. So coming back to what we started with, why people should work, greater satisfaction and greater retention is really one of the main things that employers and HR personnel should be thinking about. So at this point, we're going to come down on a quick summary. You should be able to describe some of the basics about Social Security benefits, recognize situations in which a peer specialist candidate may need additional information or wish to consult with a benefits advisor, be able to locate a benefits advisor in your local region, and dispel some of the myths about receiving Social Security benefits while working. Now, I realize we've got a lot of questions in the chat, and I just really want to assure you that we are running down on time, but we will take a look at all of the questions that came in. I'm going to have Chris and Regina give us some answers, and we'll provide back sort of a frequently asked questions document following this webinar. So wanted to let you know with PeerTech, we've got a few things that are going on, and on December 1st, you'll be able to get a sneak peek of our upcoming Learning Collaborative, where we're going to be working with an organizational self-assessment that we created, and we'll be inviting members of the mental health, outpatient treatment, and rehabilitative services programs to join us for this Learning Collaborative. So there's going to be more information coming out on that soon. And likewise, we have a webinar coming up with our partners at OMH, talking about a comprehensive view of what peer support services can look like in these clinics. So that will also include some of the frequently asked questions from our recent regional meetings. Submit any final questions. We've got about 5 minutes left before the end. If you have any other questions you want to sneak into that frequently asked questions document, go ahead and submit them in the chat now. I do want to remind you that this has been recorded. So the recording, I believe, will be available next week. Is that right, Angelique? Usually it's by Friday of the week of the webinar, but we have a holiday coming in. So I think it'll be another week before we have it posted.
Yes, it should be the beginning of next week.
Okay. And so you can look for that on our website, peertech.org. We are also, once that's posted, going to be providing a resource document that has all kinds of information about Social Security benefits and other things. I'm going to put in there, I'm just remembering that I wanted to put something in there about the New York City Peer justice initiative about people that are justice involved, because there's a lot of things that are happening with that group, and a great resource for people that are trying to hire people with justice involvement. So that will be in the resource. Also, there's a book that has been compiled for the National Association of Peer Supporters. All of the proceeds go to that organization, and it's available. That also will be in the resource document. And we have a survey currently out there that you can take when you get the slides for this. You'll be able to click that and be able to just answer questions on our peer services survey about your particular program. So again, any last minute questions, if you could put those in the chat. Information on how to contact us. This is our contact us. Again, this will be in the slide, the PDF of the slides that you can click on and join our listserv, get to our frequently asked questions. There's also a glossary that we have available. We also have a directory of peer-run organizations and family-run organizations. It's a combined directory for reaching out to peer and family-run organizations for guidance with peer support services as you start to ramp up and use them in your programs. Again, this is how you can contact our presenters, and this will also be available. Thank you, Jeanette. Yes, you can also contact Jeanette about the Justice Peer Initiative. Great resource for people that are hiring with justice involvement. And finally, just one other series to consider that we just found out about recently, and that's one of our partners that used to be NIAPers, is now called the Alliance for Rights and Recovery. They're offering a series on using Ticket to Work, Medicaid buy-in, disability resource coordinators, saving money and budgeting, and many of the kinds of work incentives and benefits that we talked about in this. This gives that a perspective for the person that's receiving benefits. And there's a link to register for that webinar also that will be in the slides for this series. So with that, I'd like to just say thank you, first of all, to Gina and Chris. Thank you very much for your expert, just all that you know, all that you've learned and all that you know and all that you've been sharing for many years now on helping people get back to work and helping people to understand what they need to know about benefits. I also want to thank Angelique and Matthew, our behind the scenes group, that folks that have been running this webinar. I also want to definitely thank our partners over at New York University McSilver and all of our team over at Rutgers and the Academy of Peer Services. And definitely our partners with the Alliance for Rights and Recovery, the Independent Practice Association, Families Together, and our sponsors at the Office of Mental Health. We want to thank all of them, and especially we want to thank all of you for coming. Thank you for being here. Have a great day, everyone.